We notice that difference there, the relationship between sin and Jesus. And now Jesus is making a clear point here, and he's describing it as a good metaphor, but back at that time, if you were a slave, you did not eat or sleep or reside in the master's house. You worked in the master's house. Maybe you go to the master's house if they had an order for you or something needed to be clarified. But you had your own slave quarters, if you were lucky, if you had a kind master. But the son, right, who's related to the master, who has that authority, if the son were to grant you your freedom, and only someone from that house can grant you freedom, then you could reside in that house. You could eat with the master, sleep in the house. So, just like King George III and the British oppressed and unfairly taxed our founding fathers, so does the devil and sin do the same to our spiritual lives. Despite what other people might say, it is Satan that is the tyrant. Let's cover a couple points here. Why am I saying this? Why is Satan so tyrannical? Why is sin so oppressive? Why is there a parallel here between our spiritual freedom and then our American freedoms, right? Well, that's because sin is oppressive. It takes away the good things that we are capable of, our gifts. It takes away our peace of mind. These are just a couple things that sin does. Sin takes away our clear conscience and it replaces it with the burden of shame. It's hard to be able to appreciate the good things, and it's hard to stay positive when in the back of your mind, your conscience is just eating away at you, reminding you of this one time that you sinned. And the devil likes to use that. He likes to use that shame to try to convince you not to try. It's a little chink in the armor, a little wound. He likes to twist his little knife in there and use that shame to be like, oh, well, you shouldn't try. You shouldn't try because you already failed. What's the point? It's too late. Give up. Just embrace the sin. Nay. Another point I like to make is that if you have to lie about it, if you have to keep it a secret, or you have to justify it to yourself, you probably shouldn't do it. Seems like common sense, but there you go. Again, some sins quite literally enslave us, such as addiction or obsessions. For those of you who have struggled with addiction or know someone who struggles with addiction or alcoholism, something along those lines, you understand what slavery can look like. How a substance can take such priority that a person will sabotage their relationships, their finances, their health, just to satisfy that one desire. It can quite literally take over someone's life. And I know. You're talking to someone who after he surrendered his car, he passed out on the lawn for a couple hours there in downtown Modesto because he was a slave to addiction. Or what about obsession? Now that one's not as noticeable or as obvious as addiction. But obsession can be just as crippling as well. We get so caught up in the finer details of how we do things, or things just have to be our way, or we cling to control. We have to do it my way, to the point where we can't even enjoy the outcome because we're so hung up on how we're trying to get there. Trying to do it in my power, trying to do it in my knowledge, that we're not giving God room to work because we want Him to work in our terms. Another point, the consequences of some sin can quite literally take away our freedoms. Again, common sense, kind of obvious, but if we steal, if we murder, we're going to prison. Right? And then also, sin drains our emotional and mental health while causing us to spiritually die. It is a poison, a slow-acting poison. Sometimes it's an instantaneous one. Either way, it is a poison from within. So the devil is a liar and uses our sin to lead us into corrupt counterfeits of godly gifts and traits. What do I mean by corrupt counterfeits? Well, the devil himself cannot create anything. The devil is a liar. He's the father of all lies. The first lie he ever said was to himself when he was up there in heaven, and he's like, hey, you know what? I'm so beautiful and talented, I think I should start running the show. Right? And then he lied to the third, that the angels came down. We all know the story of Adam and Eve. So what the devil does, though, is he corrupts good, godly things. He twists it just a little bit. He taints it. And a lot of times, sin can come across as a good idea at first, and then in the long run, we see that the price is not worth it. So what are these things that the devil corrupts? Well, love. Love turns into lust. Something that's real, something that's beautiful, something that's pure, something that's sacrificial, something that's enduring, then turns into something that's just temporary, primal, animalistic, shallow. Another thing, hope turns into fear. When we have hope in the Lord, you can't be in faith and fear at the same time. You hear old timers say that in meetings. It's true. Everyone knows that. You can't. So the devil turns hope, having hope in our Savior, having hope that God's working and interceding on our behalf in His timeline, turns into fear. And we stop trusting God with that responsibility, and we start relying on our own knowledge, and then we start spiraling and getting afraid, thinking of all the bad things that are going to happen. Joy turns into sorrow. Now, there's a difference between joy and happiness. Now, the pursuit of happiness, that is our American right, our God-given right? But joy is different than happiness. Happiness is a temporary emotion. Joy is an enduring state of being. If I have the joy of the Lord, then I can endure the trials that come my way. I can endure the hardships and the obstacles that the devil's going to throw my way, that life's going to throw my way. Intelligence turns into arrogance. I think we've all know people like that. I think, they're the smartest people in the room, or they're God's gift to whatever trade or thing you're doing. Patience turns into wrath. Generosity turns into greed. Trust turns into doubt. Peace turns into chaos. And to best sum it all up, life turns into death. This is how sin enslaves us. And this is what the consequence of sin ultimately comes down to, is death, spiritual death. When we let sin in and when we let it rule our lives, we lose our freedom. However, if Jesus Christ is our commander-in-chief, if He is our strength and we trust in Him, then the battle is not lost. The victory is ours for the taking. But just because Christ has already won and defeated the devil and sin does not mean we stop fighting. We can't just let our daddy in the sky handle it all for us. All right, we have to play a part too. Christ is not an insurance policy. Christ is not a magical little genie that grants us wishes. He's not a little charm that keeps away the governments. He's real. He's the Son. He's all powerful. He's all knowing. He's omnipotent. And He loves us, and He knows us better than anyone. But like anyone, we have to have a relationship with Him. And all relationships take work. If you love your significant other, talking about married people here, you're going to fight for that relationship, right? No matter what the circumstances is, whether you guys are separated for a little bit because of work, whether you got to go out of state, whether it's health, whether it's finances, all ugly stuff that comes with marriage that you don't see about in the romance movies, you fight through it because it's worth fighting for. It's the same thing with God. If our relationship is, when it should be, if our relationship with God is the most important relationship in our lives, which it should be, then we need to fight for it. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 11 through 12, Paul was writing to Timothy. In verse 11, he says, "But you, O man or woman of God, flee these things and pursue righteousness." Again, that is a verb, that is an action. Pursue. What does a hunter do? He pursues his prey. Godliness, faith, love, patience, gentleness. Verse 12. Fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold onto eternal life, to which you are also called, and have confessed a good confession in the presence of many witnesses. This is a call to arms, a call to spiritual arms from our commander-in-chief. As Christians, it is our duty to continue to fight the good fight in our lives, in our families' lives, in our community, and in our country, until the day we die or Jesus Himself comes back. We are not discharged till we see Jesus or Jesus comes either. It's always going to be spiritual warfare around us. It never ends. And we can't succeed and be victorious if we try to do it on our own. Or if we try to do the self-help books. Or we try to do the trends, that are going viral right now online. The only way we be victorious and we make it through is with Christ. Amen. With Christ, we gain our spiritual freedom, which allows us to live up to our full potential and realize our God-given gifts. We no longer are slaves, but we are empowered free peoples of the most powerful kingdom, the kingdom of heaven. Earlier this year, me and my family had the privilege to go to the East Coast for my sister's wedding. It was awesome. God is so good. I got to walk her down the aisle. It was beautiful. But while we were in the New England area, we decided to explore the Freedom Trail in Boston. Have you guys ever been to the Freedom Trail in Boston? No. Yeah? Oh, it's amazing. I mean, they call it the Spirit of America over there in Boston. It really is. I have never seen a more patriotic, rebellious town, and I love it. Everyone there has a bad attitude, by the way, when they're talking to you. That's just their accent. It sounds like they're annoyed with you for even breathing their air, but it's still a great time. So we got to visit, while we were there on the Freedom Trail, we got to visit many important landmarks and statues and locations of very important locations of people that played a vital role in the American Revolution. Such as, and I'll show a picture up here, the Old North Church, which still has the original single lantern hanging in the steeple. Not cool. Not great. Here we are 250 years later, and that church is still there. And in that steeple right there is still that lantern that Paul Revere saw. One if by land, two if by sea. And so, as we're looking at all these famous locations, there's this place called Faneuil Hall, and they call it the home of free speech or the cradle of liberty. And outside of that place is a statue of Samuel Adams. Keep going, Edward. See, there's the lantern. There we go. Good old Sam Adams. Now, if you're just thinking the beer, come talk to me afterwards, because there's more to it than that, all right? Now, Samuel Adams was the famous patriot who, with his Sons of Liberty, orchestrated and carried out the Boston Tea Party. And a fun fact for you guys, did you know that they swept the decks and kept the boats clean? No, you didn't know that? It's great. They rebelled against the taxes and the oppression, but they were courteous to the ships and their captains. So, now, something that I noticed and stood out to me was one of the inscriptions on the side of that statue right up there. And it simply said this, and I zoomed in on it. A statesman, incorruptible and fearless. Now imagine, if you would, what our lives would be like, how our families' lives would be like, how our communities would be impacted, if that's how God described our faith in Him. How does God describe your faith in Him? What's your inscription say? On the wages, incorruptible, fearless, and boisterous. Aaron's is patient, enduring, kind. Well, guess what? You don't have to just imagine it, because it's quite possible to live it out. It takes faith and fight. So I urge you, brothers and sisters, to fight the good fight of faith and to make the most out of the spiritual freedom that Christ has given us. We read in Galatians chapter 5, verse 1. Again, here is another command for us. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with a yoke of bondage. We are free. We are free. We are spiritually free. We are part of the kingdom of heaven. So if we get entangled again by a yoke of bondage, who is that on? That's on us. It's a choice. We all have a choice. We have this thing called free will. God respects it. Sometimes I wish He did it. Sometimes I wish it was just all automated. Then it wouldn't be love, would it? It wouldn't be an actual real relationship. Then we wouldn't be human. We wouldn't be independent beings. We'd just be puppets.
Tell him, baby girl.
So I urge you guys, again, as we celebrate and we think of the greatest country that ever is, the 250th birthday, that is a long time. It's also kind of scary, because I don't know about you guys, but when I read history books, I see there's a pattern. You get this great civilization. It does really good for about 200, 300 years. They advance in technology. They get comfortable. And then things get really weird. And then it implodes and someone else takes over. And then it's the same thing over again. Then the new people advance their technology. They get really good. They rule for about 200, 300 years. Then they get too comfortable. Things get weird. It implodes. Someone else takes over. So just, how do we keep on fighting for our spiritual freedom? How do we continue to have a positive impact on our community and continue to keep our country strong? It starts with us. We fight the good fight of faith. We lead by example. We don't let ourselves get entangled again. Because the devil, he goes around prowling like a lion, looking for weak little lambs, looking for sheep that are maybe a little too easily distracted, or maybe too easily discouraged. And he likes to whisper and make little lies to try to steer you away from the herd, to try to get you away from the shepherd, so he can isolate you, and he can trap you, he can devour you, so you can get enslaved in sin. Being enslaved in sin is not fun, and I'm speaking from experience. To be enslaved, quite literally, like it says, is to be a slave. It's to have no freedom. It's to have no hope. It's to have no trust. It's not a good way to live life, and it's not a good way to be spiritual. But to be free, now that is a beautiful thing. That's something that we know here as humans, that's worth dying for, that's worth fighting for. To be free, that's what it's about. So, my prayer, again, is that you guys would just continue to rely on Jesus. Let him be your strength, because we can't do it ourselves. Let him be your strength. Let him lead you. Let him guide you. Let him protect you. Give it to him. And don't give Satan a foothold. Fight this. And what I mean by that is, like, there might be something going on in your life right now that nobody else knows about. It's just something back here. Maybe it's something that you're too ashamed to say about out loud. Or maybe it's something that you're too embarrassed to bring up because you don't want to trouble someone else. Don't let that fester and grow into something more. Something damaging, something self-sabotaging. Maybe it's a little secret, maybe it's a little lie or something that we got going on that's sabotaging the rest of it for us. We're having a hard time focusing on the good, or we feel like a fraud, or we feel like we're missing the point, or we just don't feel Jesus working in our lives. And it's because we have this one little thing that we're not going to surrender to him. Give it to Jesus. Fight the good fight. All right, we're going to have communion. And as we have communion, after we have communion, we're going to do a worship song. And then I'll let you guys go in prayer. Can I get my ushers to come on? Again, so we're talking about freedom. And when we have communion,